Before the video starts, I just want to say that I now sell items on my Ko-fi shop. I will have bases and other physical items on there. I do have half of the Wolf Kid collection on there right now with my Wolf Boy, Wolf Girl, and Wolf MB stickers. And I do have a canine reference sheet base on there, so if you want to check it out, it's kofi.com/lorcaporca. Another thing I want to promote is that I am posting my stories again online. It will be on my Toy House, so if you want to check that out, my stories and my writing, you can find me on Toy House at Lorca Borca. Right now, I'm uploading and developing Running with Wolves, which is a series that I've had in development since I was about 12 years old, and I'm finally deciding to upload again. It follows my character Kylie Jonas and her journey with navigating being a lichen werewolf and being a politician in a world where fantasy creatures and humans coexist, but fantasy creatures are a minority. So if that sounds interesting, be sure to follow me there. But anyway, enjoy the video. Oh, it's finally here, a video that I've been needing to make since this channel's inception. So if you are a close friend of mine or have met me at fur meets or cons, you have probably seen my Balto lanyard covered in Balto pins. It is no secret that my favorite movie of all time is Balto, a 1995 animation film, a now defunct animation studio, as Balto had budgetary restraints due to their commercial failure of We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. Spielberg would co-found DreamWorks Pictures with former Disney's chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg, which remaining crew members of Animation would relocate to. Also, just a theory, Pixar coming onto the scene with Toy Story at the same time of Balto's release definitely didn't help. But hey, the furries were happy about this release. I'm not kidding, look at this old conference footage. So nostalgic. Fun fact, I would watch this as a child, not knowing it was a furry convention. I thought it was a promotional thing for the film. Well, it came full circle with me being a part of the furry fandom now, and have been for the last nearly 10 years, since I was about 15 years old. So, as you can guess, I'm very passionate about the subject, with all my fun facts and lore. But many ask, why this movie, out of all movies, this is my favorite? It wasn't a box office hit, it is not a widely known film. In the grand scheme, it didn't do anything revolutionary in terms of filmmaking. So why, out of all movies, this is my favorite? And that's what this video is here to discuss. Here is my love letter to Balto. Let's go back to my childhood. I was a very sick child due to me being premature and having relatively bad asthma. It's still not great as an adult, but manageable at least. Anyways, with that explanation, I spent a lot of time out of school because it was basically every month I would get every common cold, flu, etc. And I spent a lot of that time watching movies. What else was I to do? Balto was one of those movies that was on repeat as a child, especially ages 3 to 5. But when I was about like 6 or 7, but when I was about 6, we had gotten rid of our tape players or VCRs. So my only way of watching this movie was gone out the window. Sad. Flip to like 3 to 4 years later, and for some reason my local art and hobby had DVDs for sale. And well, Balto was one of them. So either I had my own pickup money or my parents bought it for me, I really don't remember. All I remember was that I was like 10 years old and it was in my local art and hobby. So I was reunited with my old childhood favorite, and because it had been so long, I kind of became overly fixated on it and watched it over and over and over again. And when I was sick, it gave me even more excuses to watch it over and over and over again. But on the DVD, there is this small documentary about the true story of Balto. So one day, I was bored of rewatching it and decided to watch the documentary instead. And that opened me up to the world of the actual true story of Balto. That documentary did not mention Togo at all. Sorry, if I'm going to talk about the real story of Balto, I'm going to mention Togo as well, because he deserves just as much recognition, if not more recognition, than Balto himself, which may be controversial, but I don't really care. But anyway, I learned about Togo when I became absolutely obsessed with Balto and doing as much research as I possibly could. It took over my life, if you couldn't tell. I literally made an entire Balto project in 4th class with 2 different posters, one with facts about the movie and one with the actual true story of Balto. And around this time, I also became obsessed with huskies, because of course I did. I later found out how much work they are to own and kind of crushed the dream of having my own Balto. But I do have my childhood dog named after Jenna, though. Look at her. She's beautiful. So around this time I got the DVD, I was bored, and decided to trace the cover of the DVD for fun. Oh my god, I traced. Hang me up by my Balto lanyard. I am so evil. I was proud of it, because I was a child. And I showed my parents. And my parents were incredibly supportive, and well, I kept drawing. I've been drawing now for 14 years and get commissions regularly, and the stills on your screen are drawn by yours truly. I also now study art in college, except I don't study 2D art. I am a 4D artist. I work with cameras and, filmmaking. So, it may have been traced, but it was my parents' support that really elevated me into the artist that I am today, and still today are some of my biggest supporters. So, there's some of the external lore relating to Balto and how it profoundly impacted me, but what about the movie itself specifically? Again, as I did mention, I was a very sick kid, so seeing Rosie sick with diphtheria and Balto being her hero, that really resonated with me a whole lot. But what more impacted me was Balto and his relationship with the other dogs in the film. While in the middle of writing this script, I was rewatching another one of my favorite movies, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Side note, I will probably be making my own video like this about that movie too, but I digress. I'm also reading the book as I am also recording this, so yeah, it's gonna happen. I came to a conclusion that also fits with Balto. Some of my favorite movies/media are because of how they mirror parts of my own life. This was very true with my hyperfixation on Dear Evan Hansen back in 2021. Waving Through a Window perfectly captured how I felt with my own struggles with social anxiety, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower was a mirror of me finding my own friends in secondary school and Charlie and me both having PTSD. Balto is in the exact same boat. As a kid, I was an outcast simply because I was different. I was an undiagnosed neurodivergent, still am because I am not even sure if it's even worth getting diagnosed for my autism, simply because adult benefits are kind of non-existent. Plus, I don't want any job opportunities slipping away because of it. Also, have you guys seen how much money it costs? But I digress. But kids might as well be doctors, because they can clock a neurodiverse child a mile away, and I was no different. I was made fun of a lot. They would make fun of my interests, wind me up because they knew they'd get a reaction from me because I could not read social cues, and make fun of me when I took things way too literally. And overall, fitting in was extremely hard for me. It always felt like I was on the outside looking in. Trying to read social cues was very hard and still is at times. It's like everyone was giving rules for a game and I'm trying to follow along. Everyone else just gets it, and I don't. I can't tell you how many times I've been excluded from things, or overall be treated differently because they knew something was off with me, and I'll be honest, so did I. I knew something was different, but I couldn't tell you what. I didn't even know. All I knew was that I had my own interests and ways of doing things, and they didn't like that. This also happened with me being sick. Everyone else knew I was the sick kid. With my asthma, I couldn't keep up with every kid when I was on for games. It wasn't uncommon for the other kids to put me on purpose because they knew I couldn't keep up. My asthma attacks weren't an uncommon thing to witness either. I was often humiliated for not being able to be like other kids, being laughed at or shamed in front of my peers by a teacher, one of which was during the peak of my anorexia, and I will never forgive that teacher because no matter the context, it should not have been in front of my peers. Another thing I was often mocked for was how awkward I was or how clumsy I was. I was often told I had 2 left feet. This also did play into my ability to kind of suck at any physical activity, and along with my asthma, definitely didn't help. It took until age 22 to actually find out what this was. I was hypermobile. My ankles, my knees, my back, and elbows were all double jointed and move in ways they shouldn't. Whether or not I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos or HEDS or just hypermobility spectrum disorder, HSD, is up for discussion because doctors in Ireland don't recognize hypermobile Ehlers. It's just you're hypermobile and that's it. Irish healthcare is so backwards, guys. Drives me crazy. But Balto was my first comfort character. Although I always felt this sense of something wrong with me and I was made to feel that way by my peers, and although Balto had those same experiences, it didn't mean it made him a bad person, or wolf dog in this case. If anything, it made him who he was. The same reason he was hated was the same reason he was able to bring the medicine back to the town, and even then, he had no real obligation to. He just wanted to do the right thing. We see Balto mistreated time and time again, and yet that doesn't waver in his choices of doing what's right, especially when seeing Rosie suffering. And even then, he wasn't doing it to get Jenna's affection. If that was the case in the scene where he sees the coffins, he would have said Jenna, and not Rosie. Rosie was his first thought. Same in the White Wolf scene. Rosie was his first thought. The fight between him and Steele is another. He truly wants to help as he shows every opportunity of empathy and compassion, and not once does Balto ever show aggression or hit back when he had every right to defend himself, and again is pleading with Steele to take back the medicine, and even then he says, "I don't want to fight." All of this shows Balto's nature of simply wanting to do what's right. And I found that very inspiring, and overall, Balto became my role model. Do what's right despite what others think. Do not let your burdens be defined as either good or bad. In the same way people hate or ridicule you is the same way people love you. Just because of what you're not does not make you less. It just ultimately makes you who you are. And this is why Balto is my favorite movie and my hero.